Hi, Michael Force here again with Rise Digital Marketing Mastery Course. We're on lesson number 10 now. Lesson number 10, Positioning Power. How I learned to stop competing and love the niche. There's an old saying in marketing called get rich in the niche. A lot of people think that they can come up with a little gadget and everybody in the world's going to want to buy it. And again, that's just not the case. You're going to find yourself getting far more successful and profitable in a very specific, smaller niche than trying to be everything to everyone. It's very difficult to do. There's not really anything new in the universe, as you well know. They are coming up with new technologies and new things, but unless you're super tech savvy and you have a science, major and you're deep into creating something that no one's ever seen, I would stick to going into markets where there's already some competition, but not a lot, but also make sure that you're going into very specific and niche fields and spaces. That's where you really want to be when it comes to marketing. So I'm going to break that all down here for you in lesson number 10. So let's jump into it. I'll see you on the inside. Hello, Michael Force here again. Welcome to lesson number 10 of the Rise Digital Marketing Mastery course, Positioning Power. How I learned to stop competing and began to love the niche. You've probably heard the term get rich in the niche. We're going to talk about it here in detail. I want to start by giving really a huge thanks to the group of amazing authors behind the extraordinary book Positioning, The Battle for Your Mind. Not only are Jack Trout and Al Ries the authors of these amazing books, but they are also the creators of the entire concept of positioning, the same concept that you're about to learn right here. Both guys are true geniuses, hardcore academics that truly revolutionize their field. In the end, I simply cannot overemphasize the importance of their book Positioning, as well as their other books. The impact they have had on the marketing field simply cannot be overstated, and I cannot recommend their books and concepts enough. So let's talk about positioning and what it is and what it's not. In essence, positioning is a game that you play in your mind. It's not a game that you play out in reality. You don't position your product by comparing it to other products. You position your product by creating a new mental category that it can first be in. Okay, so what exactly are we talking about here? Well, people use the word positioning as if it's something they actually do with their product or service. For example, when someone talks about positioning their product, they would probably say, we're going to position this car at the top of our market, in particular as a luxury compact car. And this is fine. I mean, that's one way to use the word, but it's really not the way positioning as a marketing concept was intended to be used. And it's not where you can get the most power from it. Positioning is also not about looking for a place in the market where you can sneak in. Positioning is about creating a category inside the mind of your prospective customers. To understand the human mind in more depth, generally it uses categories as a short decision makers. Our minds will also categorize things in order to help us organize information and recall it. Most importantly, however, our minds categorize things in order to help us make decisions. When our minds look at the world, it looks at what's something so complex and full of so many product options. And most of these product options are not actually perceived to be much different from other available options. When two options are similar to each other, we will actually consider them to be the same option, so we throw one of them away to conserve mental space. Therefore, we don't identify each distinct product for what it actually is, since this would take up way too much mental space. Instead, we identify each as a belonging to a certain category, and if the products are nearly the same, as belonging in the same category. In the end, this would help us make decisions much more quickly. We also use categories in many other ways. So if your product is not perceived to be much different from other available products, people will just kind of look at your product and go, oh, that's a Me Too product, and they'll throw it out. They don't make space in it for their mind. They don't just assume it belongs to the same category of that other stuff. At this point, it's just no use competing, because even if you attempt to do so, in many cases, you'll already lost, especially since you're trying to compete with an established competitor that's already gotten into the mind of the customer. Mainly because of this, competing is a really tough game in marketing, and when competing with established competitors, it's a game that's lost before it's even begun. As a result, it's much better for you to create an entirely new category, one that your particular product or service will be the first one belonging in it. This way you force others to compete in order to get in. Now, I must remind you that the human minds get distracted easily. They get confused easily, and they reach full capacity very easily, especially in product or service categories that we create. In fact, it turns out that we can keep only about 7 or so in any particular category inside of our mind. To illustrate the classic example that Jack Trout uses in this category of rental car companies, if I said to you, name all of the rental car companies you can think of, what are you going to reply with? If you live here in America, you'll probably say there's Hertz, there's Avis, the Budget, National, there's Dollar, then there's Thrifty. Okay, what is that? That's about 6, I think. Maybe if you have a super memory, you'll be able to remember 1 or 2 more, but then you'll surely run out. In reality, there are hundreds upon hundreds of rental car companies. Why do you only remember 6 or 7? This is because of the way our mind works, and it works in a way where it only remembers 6 or 7 things in a category, and then it puts a no vacancy sign and tells itself, okay, I've filled the category up, so I need to put anything else into it. This is true no matter what category you were talking about, no matter what particular category you were looking at. In fact, try to look at it or think about it. Any particular category of products, competitors, services, or whatever, you'll probably think about 6 or 7 and insert them into that category. After that, you'll most likely have stopped simply because this is the way our minds work. Now, because most business owners don't understand this psychology, what they do is they try to create a product or service and then try to penetrate at an already existing category inside their customer's mind, where they can already 7 or 8 or 10 or 100 others that have been competing for a long period of time, all trying to get into that category. And what happens? The customer's mind doesn't let them in. The mind doesn't let them in because it's already full. So there's no use in competing. If you do compete, you've already lost. What I mean here is that when you try to get into a category that's already established in the mind, you can't and won't get in. You've lost the game before it's even started, and this goes double or 10 times or 100 times when you're going in against experienced and well-financed competitors that have been in the game a very long time. Basically, there's no way you'll know more than they'll ever know about that category. So let's talk about how to create a mental category, because that's what you really want to do. First, start with an aspect of your customer's need that's absolutely crucial to them. Maybe it's speed, convenience, specific results, a guarantee, or maybe it's some type of functionality. But whatever it is, make sure that it's the key element to your customer. And then base your new mental category on a key need that is currently unmet, but one of your particular products or services meets. So now let's spend some more time talking about how to niche your category. Basically, this means that we want to drill down into a customer's need and find the high emotion value 20% that's going unmet. In my case, I looked into the relationship category and saw that the high emotion value was getting into a relationship in the first place. On the other hand, at the end of the spectrum was not losing the relationship once you have it. So you can do very well if you deal with settling conflicts or saving relationships that are going through bad times. But in particular case, my expertise was in the high emotion value, 20% at the beginning. It so happened that in this particular time, no one was talking about it. In other words, that needs were being unmet. After you find that high emotional value that is going unmet, it's time to discover the words, phrases, and specific emotional hot buttons that customers use to describe it. Finally, you must conduct some research to find out the niche within the niche so that you can own inside your customer's mind. Another valuable lesson that I learned from positioning, from Al Ries in particular, is that categories diverge, just like species diverge. Every business category on the face of Earth eventually becomes 2 categories or more. Computers become laptops and desktops. Cars become compact cars and mid-size cars and luxury cars. To become a master marketer and a mass manipulator, anticipate this branching out process and split the category yourself to create a category that you can own. Again, similar to what I did. Now, here's the interesting thing about categories. The big 800-pound gorilla in a particular business category is almost never the one that builds the next successful category. For example, IBM was number 1 in computers for decades. They just completely dominated the market. They were one of the most successful companies in the world. In the computers category, they were an 800-pound gorilla in their particular category. It would only make sense that IBM should have been number 1 in the important future category of software, right? I mean, they were creating all kinds of software, but they were doing other things as well. They didn't start software as a particular category to own it and insert into the minds of their customers. Well, who became number one in software? It was Microsoft. Why? Because Microsoft split off only those part of the computers called software. It isolated the crucial software aspect of computers and it went to work on it as best it could. And of course, there's a whole story about Bill Gates buying DOS from IBM and going on to become a multi-billionaire. Well, Microsoft, which became number one in software, quickly created the richest man in the world. They should have gone on and been number one on the internet, which was also a future category that branched off from software. For example, one would have thought they would have taken advantage of the search engine's niche, but they didn't. Well, who did? It was Google that won the search engine game. Now, how could this be? Microsoft was a humongous company that had tens of billions of dollars in the bank and also had all kinds of experience with software and even with search engines. And yet, a little startup run by a couple of guys created something that actually beat Microsoft pretty badly. It seems impossible, right? And the two founders of Google have gone on to become the two richest people in the world. Well, Google should have won the social networking game, right? I mean, Google had, I don't know, about 100 million people using Gmail and probably everybody on the planet using their search engine. They had everybody using their map system and all kinds of other tools that they created. It would have only made sense that they be the one to win the social networking game, but they didn't. Facebook won the social networking game. Again, it was a young guy who started Facebook in his dorm room at Harvard and then went on to become one of the richest people in the world. And it's going on and on and on. And the reason why these companies keep losing is because of instead of creating a new category and a new business and a new niche and a new name, they try to take their old name and their old business and all the stuff that they used to do and then relabel it as a new category. People are not fooled by this and say, nope, that's not the category you're in. You're a hardware company, you're a software maker, or you're a search engine maker, or you're a social networking maker, and so on and so forth. And we go with this new thing, and oftentimes the newer, younger, more innovative person is better at understanding the new category. The point is that these categories emerge and diverge in business, just like species emerge and diverge in ecosystems. And if you understand this and you're willing to create a new category, you can win the game. Name your category. To get into the mind first, you must create and promote the new category itself, not just your particular business, product, or service. To do this, you must first name your new category so that your new customers will see you as the inventor of it. To be able to create a new category, then to appropriately name it, and to finally, suitably promote it. To be able to do this, it's a truly powerful and effective advanced strategy. So, who was first? Who was the first search engine? Who was the first energy drink? Who was the first portable M3P player? Most people will say Google, Red Bull, and iPod, and not because they were truly first, but because they were the first in the customer's mind. They were first in their category, so people assumed that they invented and started that particular category. If you ask people who invented cola, most people would say Coca-Cola. Why? Because Coca-Cola was the one that put the cola category into the customer's mind first. Ask Al Ries and Jack Trout say in their book, The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing, it's better to be first than it is to be better. In other words, it's better to be the one first rather than being the better one. It's better to be the first one inserted into the customer's mind, to be the first one in creating a new category, rather than having a superior product or service that's better than a competitor's. This is true because first is seen as more of a distinction. Being first makes you truly more memorable and unforgettable than simply being better. This is an example of human psychology that is very counterintuitive. It's not something that most people would have thought of in a million years. It's only something that professional experts with tons of experience would have stumbled upon. But regardless, if we use it consciously and appropriately, it's something that we can apply right now to get dramatic advantage if used consciously. So I'd like you to get familiar with some of examples of categories that have been created. Health foods. The Whole Foods market just entirely dominated this category and created huge markets that are all categorized under health foods. Some other examples include online auction, eBay, luxury New York condos, Donald Trump, social networking, Facebook. online videos, YouTube. These particular names, these brands, these companies are so well known that they represent almost the entire category in our mind. In fact, the real masters of this game are the ones that have combined their brand name with the name of the category itself. Examples would be companies like Jell-O, Kleenex, Q-tips, and more. Will the category that you create become synonymous with your brand? It happened for these companies, and with the right attitude and strategy, it could happen to yours. So let's go ahead and do an exercise, creating a category that you can create again and again, but one you can do inside the mind of your customer. Remember, the smartest marketers always avoid competing directly with bigger and better financed competitors that are already established in a particular market or category. Instead, the smartest marketers always create a mental category that they can own. So with this principle in mind, use the exercise to create a category that you can own inside the mind of your prospective customer. So let's answer these 3 questions. First, what is the biggest unmet need your prospective customer has that would allow you to create a unique mental category around? Next question, what could you name this category in a way that you've considered the original creator of it? And finally, where would you take an existing category and divide it into 2 or more subcategories based on specific needs? Then own one of them. Okay, so let's do this exercise, dig in, and I'll see you on the next lesson.